Okay, so maybe before we start, I will say a few information, few important information. Our webinar we will be working around 1.5 hours, so hopefully we will finish 11:30. And my name is Ivana Cietwisz, and today I will be hosted this webinar with Paulina Dudek and Aneta Skubida from Vice Europe, because yes, in English version we call our organization Vice Europe. In Polish language we call our organization Vice Europa. So today we are Vice Europe. And how today webinars will be look. On the beginning, we will just check from what kind of countries we came from, and then we'll try to tell about our project community lab and about our webinar. So let me see, I need to check in my presentation this agenda, and I'm gonna to share with you my screen with you. Hopefully, yeah. Can you see it? Yeah, so this webinar called how to break down the barriers to transformation, and this is the part of the community lab project. And about this project more will say Aneta, because Aneta is the coordinator of this project. And the agenda of our meeting will be on the first point. This is the welcome and purpose of the meeting. Then we will just answer where do the from where we are come from, and then Aneta will show the presentation about the PCFL and community labs as its knowledge and innovation reservoir. It will be short presentation, and then we will show the 4 cases from different countries. And after those presentation, we want to tell more about the cases. It will be facilitated discussion, and I hope so that you will have a lot of questions, and probably Aneta will have a lot of questions, because you always have a lot of questions about the Just Transition project, which is really, really great. And if you have any ideas, any suggestion about what kind of topics we should talk on this meeting, just share with us on the chat. And I think this is it. This is enough for now. I think that Aneta, you can just start and tell more about the project, I think. Is it okay for you?
Yeah, sure, naturally. So yes, thank you so much, Ivana, for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be here today with you. We know that December is already a very, very busy time, and we were also hearing from many people that they wanted to join, but they won't be able to. And this is the reason why we are also recording this webinar, so that people could also see it later. But also
Thank you,
maybe
Aneta.
for
Thank you, Aneta.
ourselves.
Just mention it, because I forget about that. So sorry for that.
No worries, but I think also when entering the webinar, the participants should be seeing that this is being recorded. So yeah, since we are having amazing speakers here today, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We will be also recording it, and we hope it will serve both to the participants, but also to us ourselves as organizers, so that we could understand better your cases and all the circumstances that were relevant. And yes, now let me share my screen so that I would walk through a short presentation, because I know that everyone probably can't wait what our panelists have to wants to say. So I hope you can see my screen. If not, then this short. Yes. Okay. Perfect. So why do we meet today? I will explain it in several points. Let's say walking from a detail to this bigger, broader picture. And today, we will focus on innovative ways of overcoming barriers to transformation. And the barriers to transformation can be different. What do we mean by that? Is that when we talk about transformation, and in this today's context, we focus especially on the transformation from fossil fuels, especially the dependency of the regions on those resources, economic dependency, social dependency, political dependency. And we think about those transformation as a broad, big challenge. But to address this challenge, there are a number of barriers which are blocking our possibilities to answer to those challenges. And those barriers can be of very different nature. If the barriers were only technological, then it would be much, much easier. But the challenge is that those barriers are of very different nature. They can be in terms of laws which are there. They can be in terms of how the society, how the communities, whether they are collaborating or not, what are the levels of trust in there, how is the governance looking, how is the identity attached to this economic activity, which in many cases was happening there since basically since centuries or tens of years. So then there are many barriers which are kind of like a part of the challenge, but then also at the same time they are something what we can try to think about addressing first, so that we could be able to answer to the main transformation challenge more in a better way, in a way which could help us to succeed. And we know today that we need to do things differently, radically differently, because the place in which we are right now as humans, it is very dangerous for us. It's dangerous now, and even more dangerous for our years to come, and even more for the future generations. And this webinar is supportive to a call for innovations, a call for experiments in 4 regions facing the challenge of transition from coal dependency. And why we talk about experiments, this is not something that we want to like blindly test and it can explode, or we will do some tests on animals or whatever. The experiments, as we understand them, is doing something in a little bit more of zooming and in a more aware way, so that we would observe how actually certain solutions are working, what factors are playing, what factors are important in there, and then so that we could understand all the system better. Because many times we are just believing that some solution will magically resolve our problems, and then it turns out that either it didn't work at all, or sometimes it even had very serious effects which were very contradicting to what we wanted. So this is why we want to support this experimentation in overcoming the barriers which communities identify. And we want to encourage that, and we are also providing some grants to support this experimentation. And for now, we start with 4 regions, one in Romania, which is Jiu Valley. There are 3 regions in Poland, which is Greater Poland, Silesia, and Bełchatów area. And then we have also Czech Republic, which is Moravian Silesian region. But we hope in the future we could also organize similar activities in other regions. And then here it's also a little bit of experiment for ourselves as a consortium, because we also are observing in a very aware way how we are conducting this call and how it works, and then so that we could improve it for the future. So we want to also test some of our assumptions. And apart from the call from experiments, there is also a set of other activities, workshops in place, supporting capabilities, skills in the communities. There is today's webinar. We will also have a conference on 15th of December, and you can find all those information on either on our websites or on our social media. But what is also important is that this year, still, we will publish a report collecting 30 inspiring cases. Inspiring because they show how different barriers to transformation were overcome through different solutions. And this is not an easy task to collect those 30 innovative cases, but we believe we will produce something very interesting, especially that we are collecting this from all over the world. And all these actions, they are aiming at supporting communities facing the transition challenges. And the communities we are understanding in broad terms. We don't mean just we don't mean just one group, but we understand communities as the whole. So they're decision makers, people who run business, NGOs, people from academia, innovators, active people, everyone who's basically in the community, so different groups, and thinking about how they create communities together. And those actions that we are taking, that I just presented, they are a part of the Community Lab initiative, which is a kind of a boost, which is like a kind of a special focus, knowledge and innovation reservoir for the Post-Call Future Lab. And now just a word about the Post-Call Future Lab. This is something of which probably you'll be able to hear from me talking quite many times. So now I will just tell what is the main building blocks of the Post-Call Future Lab. So the thing is that it consists from two sets of labs, which are at regional or city level, and then there is also kind of like a European level, connecting those laboratories as spaces to innovate, spaces to gain experience, spaces to try new methods and tools, and create portfolios of solutions, so that the solutions that we are applying to transform wouldn't be just fragmented, just like kind of shooting here or there and maybe something will work, but that they would be seen together, and that there would be a reflection how those solutions that we are applying can help us to transform all the systems in an understanding of cities, towns, regions, specific places, villages. And the Post-Call Future Lab's mission is to become a practical, experimental, and participatory pillar of the just transition, complementing existing support systems, because this is something what we also have observed, that at the EU level, mainly we have the just transition mechanism, we have very big funding available, we have just transition platform where the main players of the just transition are coming, but there is a very big kind of like an empty space between this, what is happening at the European level, and this, what is actually happening locally, how people feel, how people engage or not engage in the just transition, what are the narratives, what are their perceptions, their fears. So this is how we want to help to build those labs as something what will help the communities. And here you can see some pictures from one of the labs, and there were sets of meetings. This was run in the coal town of Bieruń in Silesia, and this shows that the so-called Just Dreaming lab, which was encouraging the participants to dream a little bit, because this is also something what we've observed, that people mainly fear the transition. And this way we were testing how we can help people to be bolder, to innovate more, and to try to do things a bit differently. And the partners behind the initiative, there is quite some of us. There is us, Wise Europe, Climate Strategies, ERFC, a partner from Greece, Agira, Lehendakaria Center, and we are having Gorka today with us as a speaker. Impact Hub in Ostrava, the Climate Vertical from Romania, and we also have EIT Climate Kick, who is on one hand sponsoring our actions, but on the other hand, they are also a very active partner, designer, co-designer of what we are doing. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can either drop me an email or reach out to me through social media, for example, either LinkedIn or some other ways. So thank you so much, and looking forward to the speakers.
Thank you, Aneta. And I have to admit that I just discovered that I have this is in our agenda, but I didn't ask you, where are you from actually? Because I prepared a nice colorful map, and I'm gonna show this map. And I wanted to ask you, where are you from, guys? And just tell us a few nice sentences about your countries. But of course, I am a little bit stressed and I forget about that. So this is before when we will start to present the 4 cases. I would like to ask you and share with us, where are you from? Where are you now, actually? Which part of Europe or in which part of world are you now, guys? Just share with us, maybe on the chat. If you want, you can just say us, just, it depends on you. I am from Poland, from Bożęcin Duży. This is the countryside next to the Warsaw. Hello, everyone.
And I'm also living quite close to Ivana. I come from Warsaw, also Poland. But currently I'm in Valencia. On Friday I will be in Prague, then I'll be in Ostrava, then I'll be in several more places. And yeah, I'm from there, but I also feel pretty much of a citizen of Europe, and I feel pretty much connected to quite some cities with which I work.
Who is next? Be the leader and share with us.
Hi, I'm Christiakakis. I'm from Greece and I'm currently located in Greece.
Hi, Chris. Guys, be brave.
I am from Bilbao, but I live in Madrid, Spain.
Spain. Hi, Monica. And I will check on our chat. Suburbs of Warsaw, Bilbao. Yeah, I see Bilbao, and that's all. No one want to share with us, where do you come from? So let's just 1 second. I see. Probably you see my chat now. Something's happened. Okay, guys. So maybe I will stop to share this beautiful Europe map, and we will go to the next step of our webinar. So the next step of our webinar, if I could remember, will be the presentation of 4 cases. Am I good to remember? Yeah. So today we have four presentation. It will be the first one will be Ivan Sergeyev, Ministry of Finance, Just Transition responsible from Estonia, right? So Ivan, are you ready? So the floor is yours.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. And now can you see my screen? All right, great. I can see some people nodding. Thanks. So yeah, hi. My name is Ivan Sergeyev. I am from Estonia. I work at the Estonian Ministry of Finance, and I'm in charge of coordinating the just transition process here in Estonia. Today, I'm going to tell you about the so-called Youth Climate Assembly and its role in preparing the just transition in our country. So just to kind of really to orient ourselves, what is the area we're talking about? Estonia is located in pretty much like northeastern Europe, I guess. We border Finland. Up on the top on the screen of the screen, you can see Helsinki. With yellow, I've marked the region that we're actually talking about, which is the Ida-Viru region. So to the east from us is Russia. We border Russia directly. And then, yeah, to the west would be Finland, Sweden, all of those countries, so the Nordics. The impact of the transition in Estonia is such that basically what we're trying to phase out, or the biggest polluter that we're trying to phase out, is oil shale. Oil shale is sedimentary rock, which is, well, essentially used to produce energy. And you can also squeeze oil out of it, so you can produce synthetic oil. And the oil shale sector is highly concentrated in Ida-Virumaa, the same region that I just showed you. So, for example, in 2019, over 50% of Estonia's total greenhouse gas emissions originated from that particular region. Which means, obviously, that in the transition to climate neutrality, that region will have the most, let's say, will have to, well, the impact will be the largest over there, which has a bad, let's say, potential to exacerbate the challenges that are already present in the region, which I'm sure don't sound like anything new to you. You probably face the same challenges. So like low wages, high unemployment, aging, decreasing population, influx of youth, stuff like this. So basically, we have already received the formal adoption from the European Commission on our TJTP, so the Territorial Just Transition Plan. But in order to compile it, a couple of years ago, we organized a pretty comprehensive partnership, or at least we've tried to be pretty comprehensive with how we, let's say, consult and reach out to the community, to the different partners, and how do we prepare our plan. So we set up a steering committee on the national level. We had a regional just transition platform, and I mean like regional Ida-Viru region, not the all European one, although the name is the same. Then we've had a few soft networking structures involved. We've carried out public consultation activities that involve public seminars, formal written consultations, all sorts of stuff. So I'm sure none of this sounds too new to you. But one interesting thing that happened was that in summer 2020, we carried out a public outreach, or like a public opinion poll. We received about 1.5 thousand responses. And the major findings don't sound surprising. So basically the respondents were the people living in Ida-Virumaa region. And basically the questions were, what do you find important in moving towards climate neutral economy? What do you think we should deal with? What should we be investing into, and so on and so forth. So the respondents were typically satisfied with the natural environment, attractions, and the region's cultural diversity, public spaces, educated and hardworking people, things like this. The most frequently mentioned development needs were job creation, which is, again, not surprising, development of business environment, and competitive wages. Areas of focus in transitioning to a new economy would be, finding new functions for unused mining and industrial sites, again, creating new companies, developing the industrial sector. So all of this sounds like it makes sense, I think, right? Nothing new. However, what we did see was that the youth, who also were some of the respondents to this opinion poll, they diverged from their responses to, let's say, the mainstream opinions. So they were not satisfied with the region's attractions or the cultural diversity. Actually, a lot of them thought there was no cultural diversity. The built environments and the public spaces were also not satisfactory to them. What they were satisfied with was the local, let's say, active and frugal local community and the public services. They did not consider industrial development or exploitation of mineral resources or creation of new jobs or companies as important. Instead, what they prioritized was investment into renewable energy, something that was not much of a priority for the mainstream population. And also, what they valued were kindness and friendliness, something that they did not really see in the current older population of the region. And they saw themselves in jobs that require interacting with people and are of creative nature. So as you can see, the youth, like what we've noticed was that the youth were not the same as the mainstream population, let's say. However, the challenge, so we wanted to look deeper into that or to see what the deal is. Like, how can we involve more youth so that we can have or bring this divergent opinion more to the light of day? But the challenge that we faced is that although the transition is about future and the youth who will need to lead that future are very important, they are pretty hard to reach. So, for example, they lack organized representation as opposed to some, let's say, grown-up stakeholder groups like trade unions, industry lobbying groups who have their, CEOs, they have their representations in all the necessary places. The youth don't. So it's very difficult to involve them directly in decision-making. The youth are not used to having agency in strategic processes, especially in Idaviruma, where the default attitude would be, well, why should I care, and you don't care what I say, so I'm going to leave anyways. So that would be the typical attitude. Then also, given the fact that Idaviruma depends on oil shale, which is a fossil fuel, then the, let's say, the surrounding or the default narrative in the region is that there is no climate change and it's not important. Deal with something more important. So the youth growing up in that particular region, they have relatively low awareness, actually, of their environmental issues, which is surprising, right? Because we're used to thinking of youth as the most environmentally aware population segment, but in that particular region, that is not the case. For example, there isn't a lot of young people who would be outspoken about the environmental issues. And also language barrier. We have to keep in mind that Idaviruma is 85 or like more than 80% Russian speaking, and that includes the youth as well, who obviously know Estonian language better than the older population does, but still. The solution to how do we involve youth arrived in cooperation with a number of partners and sort of by chance. Basically, what was decided or what was pitched by the Estonian Nature Foundation and the NGO Rohetiger, who deals with environmental awareness in Estonia, was that, hey, why don't we organize a climate assembly? And so, bearing in mind that we had a problem with, reaching out to the youth, I suggested that, okay, climate assembly sounds great. It's not a new concept. Essentially, it's been developed and applied in countries all over Europe by now to deal with climate-specific issues. But I don't think anybody has ever organized a very regional youth-based climate assembly. So I kind of bounced that idea to them, and they really liked it. And then so we decided to organize this youth climate assembly in Idaviruma and delve specifically on the just transition process. So what happened was about 40 young people from Idaviruma were selected based on an algorithm that was run on the national registry of data to ensure accurate representation, that they are balanced as far as gender, age, and so on, and also geographic location. And then a format was set up. So they met with stakeholders, they learned about climate policy. So they were not the youth that would have been aware of climate before. They were completely randomly selected, however, based on the registry. But they were not the youth that you would typically expect to be active in climate policy. So this was a new topic to them. They had to learn it pretty much from scratch, which they did. And then in the end of their work, they suggested 26 amendments to the territorial just transition plan that we, introduced to them. A new NGO was founded that has its mission as supporting the just transition and kind of keeping a look or like an eye on the just transition process so that everybody would be involved. and representing the youth there. And it has also served as a pilot for other assemblies in other regions of Estonia. For example, Tartu, the second largest city, just had a climate assembly. Tallinn is preparing one, and so on and so forth. And what was also remarkable is that we've been now able to have an actual NGO or representatives of the youth that you could involve in the TG or JTF steering committee, which is the main, let's say, steering organization for the JTF process. So the lessons learned are that the youth do have a lot to contribute to the just transition process, not surprisingly. You just need to ask them the right way. It will require effort, though, because they are not easy to reach. So you'll need to kind of get creative if you want to involve the youth. Thankfully, the European Commission has published some guidelines as to how to do that and some good case studies for it. But still, you'll need to be pretty creative as to how you involve the youth. Like in case of Estonia, yeah, one of the ways that we discovered the importance of youth in the very early stages of the process is that we dug into our data. We saw discrepancies, and so we acted on them. So dig deeper. And not everything needs to be done by yourself. It's like, for example, in our case, it's not the Ministry of Finance that had to do and organize this and come up with the whole thing, but rather our great partners, Estonian Nature Foundation and NGO Rohetiga. So yeah, this is our case study, and thanks. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan. I have a proposition. After all for presentation, we will have the session of question and answers. And then if you have any question, just ask. You can write already on our in our section questions and answers, and we will try to not to forget about it. So let me invite you to the second presentation. The second presentation will be from Spain. Monica, feel invite, and you are the sustainability responsible Iberdrola. I hope so. This is okay. Social innovation platform, a platform in Lada and Velila del Rio Carrion from Spain.
Yes.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivana. Thank you for your kind invitation. And I will explain, as you mentioned, I come from Iberdrola. Iberdrola is a utility, and we are wind leaders worldwide, but we have 2 coal plants in Spain. So they were closed some years ago. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were dismantling. Now we are in the process of the dismantling of these 2 coal plants, so we do not have any coal facility by now. And that's why 2 years ago, we decided to set some initiatives in that regions where we were closing our coal facilities. I think it's very relevant. I'm very happy that Ivan was in front of me, because we will be reviewing some common conclusions. So I would say that for these 2 locations, sustainability is not a priority. You have to think that in the 2 locations, Asturias, it's settled in Langreo with just 3,600 inhabitants, and in Palencia, the other facility, it's less. It's 1,600 inhabitants. So I think they are very small communities, very dependent on the coal facility activity. So you have to think that when closing the activity of the coal plants, they were losing a lot. Not only the employees, but all the supply chain, all the society, the local communities there. So first of all, first barrier, sustainability, climate change is not a priority for them. They don't take into account, they don't like this movement towards closing the coal facility. So they don't think as Iberdrola as a good actor to change because we have been closing their activities. So I think it's very relevant. And I think, and Aneta was mentioning also at the beginning, like this, the perception of the society was very relevant. And that's when we launched this open platform, this innovative citizen platform 2 years ago with 2 universities, with the Polytechnic University of Madrid and the Aguirre Lendakaria Center from Basque Country. Gorka is here, is representative of this center. And I think it's very relevant, and something that we learned since the very first moment was about the iceberg that we had to go behind the perception, the clear and the open perception that we saw at the beginning. So I would go with a very short presentation because I have just 2 slides, but I would like to tell you what we did by that year, 2 years ago, when we started with this innovative, and this is another barrier that we have to take into account, that we don't have support from the local administration for innovative process. They want to have another activity, change the activity of the core facility and have another one that gives them the opportunity to have taxes, to have employment, to have wealth in the city. And we have also some opposition to an innovative movement internally here when I say, okay, we will launch this platform, but I do not know which will be the results beforehand. So that's something difficult to be approved because you have to think that we are a private company and we invest in an innovative platform, but we do not know which will be the results. So I think that these are some barriers. I like to have confidence with you to understand that it's something that beforehand is difficult to have this support from the very beginning. So although we have some barriers, we decided to go ahead with this open innovation platform. And as I mentioned, this is a joint initiative with the two...
Monica, can you make the full screen?
Like this. Yes.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So what's the process that we have followed during this 2 years of work, and I think it's relevant to speak with the image of the iceberg in front of us, because I think it was very relevant, and this is a continuous process of listening, active listening, in order to go deep and have the needs and the initiatives that are behind the surface. So what we have been doing during these 2 years have been hundreds of interviews, some of them made by the own employees of the core facility, helped by the 2 universities, and people from the universities have been with launching these interviews. And I think it's very relevant. We have, from this knowledge, we have selected like patterns of ethnographic profiles of needs in the region. So I think it's very relevant that we have extracted these needs that were behind the top of the surface. Then we have mapping the actors and the initiatives, and I think it was very relevant, the collective interpretation with all the shared information in all the levels of the communities, because we went to the communities, to the small initiatives, we went to the SMEs, we went to the entrepreneurs, we went to the big companies, and also to different regulatory initiatives. So in the different layers, we have been co-creating the different initiatives that they wanted to have in their place. So I think it's very relevant to change and say, okay, we won't go from a top-down perspective, and we are doing a bottom-up listening, and just listening. When we co-create with the rest of the actors, we will have the areas where the needs will be fulfilled. So this job of interpretation and co-creation is being launched during these 2 years, and in order to go to the transformation. This is an ongoing process, and I would like to focus that the main point of the platform is to promote the connection about initiatives, because what we have seen during this process, in the two processes in the two facilities, is that they have a lot of isolated initiatives that it was impossible for them to be successful if they were on their own. So what we have created, this is this platform for connectivity of all the initiatives, and I will show you the example here in Asturias. This is the activities where we have gathered all the initiatives, and they are in big initiatives, in big areas, where we are, as you can see, we are fulfilling the needs of these patterns that I mentioned at the beginning. So we are happy because we are not just fulfilling the needs of one specific social pattern, but we are fulfilling all and trying to cope all the needs of the population. So I think this is as I said, ongoing. We are in the process of having all these initiatives connected and having some actions that are being taken with some aids, financial aids are going to be developed. So we are right now in that process. But the importance of, I wanted to mention, is the process in itself. This new way of approach for a private company and for a community, we have shown that really it's a very good different way of approaching a problem. So I would conclude with and Ivan, I will really copy paste your conclusions, and I think it's very relevant, because it's incredible that, okay, you were mentioning that youth has not to be forgotten as a first conclusion. For us, this is like society or community, because we have been working with all the actors, but this is something that very relevant for us. That's something that takes a lot of effort, and it's not something easy. That would be the second conclusion, and I'm really very keen on that, because, okay, this is a 2 years work that perhaps you are waiting for a final result, and you have to wait, you have to go deeper and dig deeper. I really love that one, Ivan, because it's the iceberg that I was mentioning at the beginning. You have to go deeper in order to check and to get the results. And for sure, the last one, great partners. And without the universities, we couldn't do that. We do not have the social license to operate in the place when we are closing. So I think it's very relevant to find the best actors, the best partners, in order to do this kind of initiative. So thank you very much, and open to any question that you could have in the initiative that we have launched in the 2 regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for your interesting presentation. But and I'm pretty sure that we will come back to your topic in the question and answer session. But now I need to a little bit modify our agenda, because Ivan has time only till 11. So and I found out that we have one question to you, so I will just repeat it. Would you say that it was adventurous to onboard random youth rather than targeting those who were already active, knowledgeable in some way? Were there disadvantages to this approach? In example, you mentioned it, needing to teach them about things. Can you answer on these questions?
Yes, hi. Sorry about this issue that I need to run
That's
earlier.
okay.
So
No
I had
worries.
to, yeah. Anyways, I already answered to George. I don't know if you see it in the chat, but basically my answer would be, I think you need to do both. But as I mentioned, the Nida Viruma, we really didn't have much choice. We didn't have any climate ambassadors that would be outspoken and that you could be like readily reach out to engage on this issue. So we had to basically, yeah, we had to work with what we had, which is youth that we kind of had to educate on this stuff. Plus, I think we need to raise awareness of climate policy and youth engagement anyways. So we might just as well use this approach. So yeah, in our case, we invented this way because we didn't really have other good options. But maybe in some cases, you do have the youth that is readily available there to join the steering committees, to get involved in the process. And if you're lucky in that way, then yeah, of course, go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time. So we are done, and then I invite Gorka Espiu, director at Agire Lehendagaria Center for Social and Political Studies, and we will talk about Bilbao effect.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I mean, I think it's super interesting that we are, I think, tackling the same challenge from very different views. But I think we are pretty much connecting the dots because, you know, the experience that we have had the opportunity to work with Iberdrola in this process and the challenge in this case that the government is facing in Estonia, they all try to combine, you know, technical and social responses, because at the end of the day, that's what, you know, the just transitions are about. So what my plan is to reflect on how cities can actually, you know, as a whole city can go through this transformation, and what are the connections with what Ivan and Monica were explaining before. So how can we generate those social dynamics then that allow the necessary infrastructure for conducting this transition. So let me share my screen as well. Thank you. Please let me know if you can see. Yeah, I hope you. Okay. So, so just to begin a bit of a background. So, because I think this is important for a lot of just transition areas that sometimes they see that the context is so difficult that is almost impossible to visualize how a just transition can happen. Is very similar to what Monica was explaining in the areas where we have been working, where these big plants close down and you see the impact on employment. But normally it's not only the employment part, there are many other factors that are making that transformation really difficult. So in our case, when we look back and you see the situation of Bilbao, but the whole Basque area only 4 years ago, I mean, when you take a bit of distance and you see it was kind of the perfect storm, because it was like, you know, 4 years of dictatorship, total industrial collapse, not only in the industry, you know, the energy part, but also, you know, the manufacturing, and then on top of that, we had violence. So normally in those situations, areas that actually have to go through those situations, they have, you know, as you can imagine, a lot of difficulties to find new ways out. So in the case of Bilbao, this has happened, and this is now the image of, you probably know from the city. So from that really, you know, dark image and gray picture of Bilbao that Monica and myself, you know, remember very well. Now, when you go to the city, that is, you know, you see, and that's what the image, you know, so of the city. So then there is a tendency in these transitions to make kind of, let's say, a very rapid or simple readings of how, you know, this transformation took place. And normally, you know, as you know from other just transition areas, you tend to see this is all about infrastructure. So we need to invest in infrastructure, and we need to generate new, you know, anchor businesses or developing anchor businesses that will transform the city. and the elites are the ones, the leadership, and we keep hearing the word leadership as someone will be able to take that key decision that can generate that a transformation. So therefore, as you know, there have been a lot of cities and also just transition areas are looking for those flagship initiatives. They can be like the Guggenheim type, in this case, how a museum can generate that alternative economy to industry. But as you also know probably already, these like single point solutions really don't have a huge impact. They generate, so in this case, you see a picture of the way that the city, in terms of infrastructure, has transformed. So you have a very, very old infrastructure, right? The river itself, really polluted, to a totally different infrastructure. That is true. But actually, when you ask all the key people that were involved, especially Frank Gehry, they start saying, hold on, the infrastructure is just one part of it, but it's actually not the most important part. And they start making questions like, okay, so is really true that one person took the decision, or it's actually, a lot of different interconnected decisions, how the funding is structured, and then you realize that it's not only one source of funding. What is the engagement with the city, as you were explaining before, etc., etc. And most importantly, in those situations, why people think that change is possible, and why sometimes they think that change is not possible, because that narrative normally condition the future. So in the past case, we like to use this kind of more colorful image to say, Bilbao was transformed thanks to a portfolio of interconnected initiatives. I think Monica might ask me to change this logo, because this is what all the communication people hate, when you kind of take the logo of a company and you merge it in the logo of another company. So it's like the last thing you would do. But we use it in a way to visualize that it is not a coincidence that Iberdrola, one of the largest energy companies in the world today, actually has also its origins in Bilbao. And there are many other examples of companies that only 40 years ago were not that big, and today are huge companies in the world, and they were able to transform in that context of difficulty. But then you see many other very interesting elements connected to, in this case, to the Bilbao transformation. So not only the Guggenheim itself. I could give you, a lot of examples, but why the city and the region decided to incorporate a basic income system at that time, for example. It's crucial to understand how people were able to, get engaged with the transformation itself. But we also saw some other very, very interesting processes, like the recovery of the local language and the reinvention of the gastronomic scene, for example. So when you look at how this place is transformed, it's much more interesting to see this map of initially disconnected, but in reality connected initiatives at the bottom. So in our opinion, this transformation was possible to a very comprehensive strategy, public and private, but that was not a top-down design. That was actually generated more as a movement of transformation. That's why we use this image. And this is the key learning for us. How do we shift from, let's say, expert-driven or top-down strategies for transitions to how we incorporate a movement building approach to our work? If we look at the Bilbao transformation for that angle, then we understand that actually the Guggenheim Museum is an artifact that represents the transformation. It is not the artifact that generated the transformation. So therefore, you can also understand that when you try just to replicate, and that's why I put this image of the helicopter trying to take the Guggenheim and taking it somewhere else, actually doesn't work. And we need to find really different ways, in the ways that you were explaining, Ivan and Monica, or how actually the portfolio of interconnected initiatives is actually responding to local dynamics and aspirations in real time. These are the models, as you know, that we're trying to incorporate, that in some ways challenge that traditional innovation spiral that comes from the technology and business world, and that is uncritically transferred to social process. In our opinion, just transitions are basically social transformation processes that have obviously a technology and business dimension. But if we put the technology and the business part first, it's going to be really, really difficult to connect with the communities that actually, at the end of the day, need to lead these processes. So, well, I could be talking a lot about this, but I think it's better just to stop here and open the possibility for conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gorka. And I would like to remind that all this interesting information about those case studies will be available soon in our report. We're planning there the special case study section. So all this information will be there, and we will be publishing this report soon. So be on a standby, and we will inform you. And now I think it's the high time. Thank you, Gorka, of course, because I forgot to say thank you. And then I think the last but not least, I invite Chrysanthos Steikakis from World Bank, zoning post-meaning sites, Lura tool, and pre-permitting. I'm not sure if I said everything okay, so Christanos, forgive me.
It's fine. Hello, my name is a little bit difficult, and apologies for my voice. I'm a bit cold, I have a cold. Let me share my screen. So you see my screen, okay? So my presentation today will be a little bit more technical than the other presentations that we had. I hope that I do not get bored too much. So I will start immediately by saying we have post-mine irrelevant lands, and we need to do something with them. We cannot let them be like that. So we want to put them in a productive way, so we can create jobs and have social harmony. So we would like to take a irrelevant land and do something else with it, do a photovoltaic farm, do a pump hydro storage, or do something completely different. But the question is, how are we going to do that? So we have the key challenges, which is how to effectively, with purpose, these integrated post-mine lands, how to make the lands productive in an environmental, low carbon economy, and take into account also the climate change. But at the same time, we do not want to neglect the social and cultural aspects that come from this purpose. So we need to create sufficient space to replace energy production and job loss, but at the same time, we do not want to use green space to do this. We want to use the existing lands in a more efficient way. But all these have many barriers. Most mining lands have serious legacies. They have environmental pollution, they have geotechnical instabilities, they have hydrological risks, and they, at the same time, they present complicated ownership status. Some lands are owned by governments, some lands are owned by private entities, or both. There are insufficient legislation covering the way that the former mine land can be transitioned. and there is a lack of governance bodies to undertake these uh, purchasing activities. Finally, a very important aspect is how take into account the opinions of a diverse stakeholders. How can we incorporate in our future repurposing all the ideas and all the thinking of different stakeholders? So what we did at the World Bank is created a methodology in which we want to uh, extract the subjectivity of what to do with lands and put it in a more formal and non-ambiguous uh, thinking. So we created the land repurposing methodology, which is a methodology that initially undertakes investigation and monitoring of sites. It does a clarification of the legal and the regulatory permitting situation. Then it applies the land classification methodology and the software that we have created named Lura. And then based on that information, we can create a land repurposing master plan for future use. So the land repurposing methodology is an advanced tool that can be used effectively to evaluate how a derelict land can be transformed to a more productive and efficient land. How this methodology works, it takes biophysical and chemical and socioeconomic criteria regarding existing lands into account, identifies legacies and favorable conditions, and conduct an objective fact-based assessment of these lands, and then use simple algorithms to define broad post-mine repurposing typologies and scenarios. It includes assessment of potential added value and allows post-processing and interpretation of results. So, in essence, we take into account 5 criteria, which is location, geotechnical stability, topography, hydrology, environmental risks, and cost sensitivity, and we evaluate all these aspects for different segments of an area, and we come out with better and more productive typology, land typology. So very briefly, I will discuss the Libya's case study. Here you can see the town of Libyas, and you can see down on the screen waste heap, a mine waste heap that is placed very near or almost in the center of Libya's town. So how we use our Lura tool, we subdivide this heap, this waste heap in different segments, and we evaluate the different conditions, which is location. We see the roads, we see the city center, we see how these areas and how these networks can be beneficial to repurposing the area. We evaluate the geotechnical conditions of the derelict land, if it has erosion problems, stability problems. We create heat maps of areas with legacies and geotechnical instabilities. The same is done with topography and hydrography. So again, we see heat maps where we consider that the land has issues of hydrological risks, or we have, on the other hand, better topographic areas that the land could be used in a more stable way. Then we evaluate the environmental risks of the area, and you can see here on the screen some pollution that is coming out from the side slopes of the heat and how this would affect the post-use of the land. Again, we have this heat map for environmental risks. And finally, we evaluate the development opportunities which is what are the permitting conditions of the area, what is the ownership, what is the reclamation status, and what funding availability is there in the area. After we use all these criteria, the application does an automatic evaluation and comes out with possible land uses, as you can see in this screen here. And so basically, we say what is better for each part of this area to be repurposed to. So you can see here, for example, we have statistical information that from this land, which is 0.85 square kilometers, we can assign 27 square kilometers forest, 0 to agriculture. This area cannot be used for agriculture, as you understand. It can be used for energy production and can be used also for business and residential development. But it has also some areas with permanent water bodies that have to be taken into account. So basically, from this exercise, we come out with post-mine land proposals that can be taken into account when repurposing this area. And here you can see how we can select different areas to be classified in a different zoning proposal for the future development. So you can see the areas for which is a more high value investment. There are the areas where the sedimentation pond cannot be done too much with it has to remain like that. There are zones where photovoltaic installations can take place, and there are zones that, due to their instabilities and legacies, can only be used for reforestation and natural habitat. So finally, from all this exercise, what we'd like to do is to create a zone plan which has all which would be undertaken an environmental study and can have a repurpose plan which is already kind of pre-approved from the point of view environmental impact and permitting. So individual companies or different stakeholders can come and invest in these areas without the past of undertaking again all the difficult and lengthy permitting conditions and the environmental assessment evaluation. So basically, this is what we try to do to create a more robust land repurposing evaluation, and I would be glad to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chrysanthos. And it was the last presentation, and then and now we have the session the session of questions and answers. And I've noticed that we have one question from Karol Sarna from Vise to Gorka. I'm not sure if you, Gorka, see this question, so I will read it. What was the role of Bilbao RIA 2000? Could we say that all of social economic shift was able due to innovative mechanisms they created?
Well, yes, a very important role, because this was the institution that was created to align and integrate all different efforts. So this is the space where you had the local town hall, the municipality, but also the Basque government, also the provincial government. So it was basically, the space for collective deliberation, and it was a space where the decisions about the infrastructure. So this institution was mainly focused on regenerating, the infrastructure of the city. So the decisions about the river, to clean up the river, the decision for, how the landscape was going to be organized. So I have to say, it was definitely Bilbao Ría 2000 play a crucial role in integration and in generating a portfolio. No, so it was not just single point solutions or disconnected solutions, but just a portfolio. What I would argue is that there is a risk on seeing Bilbao Ría 2000 as the only actor, or the decisions taken by as infrastructure as the only way to explain how the transformation happened. And actually, when you ask those people who were involved at that time, the former president who actually signed the check for the Guggenheim, the 100 million check, when actually there was no money in the government, that is part of our team. What he would explain is that for them, it was impossible to take those investments and those investment decisions in an isolated way. So it didn't make any sense to invest 100 million only in the museum if it was not part of a portfolio of interconnected initiatives. Mm-hmm. So the discussion in the government will be, okay, this is very expensive, but it will say, well, we need to understand the whole portfolio, and then if a cultural infrastructure that will change the perception of the city makes sense or not if the Guggenheim at the museum is going to change it all. And then what is missing, I think, still in that conversation is, okay, what was the connection with social dynamics? Because also, again, the president and others will tell you, you cannot take those decisions if local population is against you. So it is true that there were some very important debates about certain decisions, but actually how you bring people with you in the portfolio, in the transformation, is actually the most important thing, because there might be people who don't agree with certain decisions or single point solutions. But actually the question is, are people being part of that movement of transformation? And do they agree with the strategic decision? You might disagree in certain, points, but you actually share the direction, and then you see those deeper connections actually taking place. Sorry for the long answer, but normally, it's not as easy. So this is just the way it happened. Thanks.
No, don't worry.
But Monica
it was
can complement. I think Monica has also an interesting view on that, and also the role also that Iberdrola has played. I'm saying it has not been sufficiently studied, because the process of when Iberdrola actually gets global, it's actually at the same time. So at the same time that actually the context was really difficult, and today we think it's like a coincidence that Iberdrola goes global from Bilbao at that particular time, and from a scientific point of view, it's not a coincidence when actually all those things are happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would like to remark the point of the interconnection of the activities and the portfolio view. That's very difficult to assess from a very unique perspective, because you are private actor, public actor, so we are not used to work in partnerships. We all say that we work in partnership, but it's not real, because it's very difficult to do it sharing the same results, sharing the same without these logos appearing, because we want to be part of that. So I think it's quite difficult, and I would remark the interconnection of everything. So it's one part, it's like a puzzle, and we are one of the missing piece of the puzzle. So you have to do it, and that's why I understand when somebody asks about the role of a specific actor, it's something that has to be connected with another actor, and that's the kind of questions that we have to ask. It's not the role of one specific actor, Iberdrola for sure, but Iberdrola with Bilbao 2000. So it's a lot of parts of the community. So thank you for the question and for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, guys, that you mentioned about the how is the huge challenge is to engage the stakeholders, different kinds of stakeholders from many different groups, because the same, maybe not the problem, but the challenge we have in Poland, that we know we identified them and we have the contact with them, but it's still hard to connect them in the, some kind of relation, like cooperation, because they say, yeah, we want to cooperate, but it's really hard to make this cooperation. So it's from one hand it's really sad, but from the other hand it shows that it's not only the problem in Poland, it's around unfortunately it's around the Europe, the world. So this is the huge challenge, I think, for us. And the next part, before we start the next part, because I'm checking the time, I have to ask if anyone from our participant have questions. Maybe some of you wanted to ask of something special our guests. Last chance. If you want to ask, you can just mail to us, and we will try to connect you with our guest. But if you don't, I just checking the section of questions and answers and the chat, and I don't see anything new. So actually, we just I have one question, which I have to ask for all of you. What were the enabling conditions allowing for the solution to work? Yeah, this is the one question from us. We really wanted to get the answer from you. And I will put it on the chat, hope so. So maybe let's start from Monica and then Gorka and Chrysanthos.
Okay, I would say again the connections, because I didn't met Gorka, although we are the two of us from Bilbao, but we haven't met before. But we have the University of Madrid. We have a chair, SDG chair with the university, and they introduced Gorka and the job that he has just presented. So it's again a connection that made possible to launch this innovative is the trust that we have in actors that have been working together for a long time. So when we have this initiative in front of us and we really decide to go ahead with the innovative platform, although we do not know the results beforehand. So as I mentioned before, this is not easy, but I think the trust is one of the key points, and the previous connections were the enablers of this work.
Thank you, Monica. So trust and connection. What about you, Gorka?
Well, I think that we are in the past case, but also I think I would say also in the Iberdrola case and others, and especially in the just transition situations. Actually, the emergency situation or the need really is the most important enabling condition. So normally we think that when the situation is very difficult, it's more, it's really, as you were saying, it's really complicated to get people, aligned together. But actually, our experience is the opposite. When the situation is much more complicated, normally there is also it's easier to actually take decisions that are more transformative. When we are working in settings where the situation is not so bad, and it's the same thing for just transition. So the just transition areas where the situation is not so difficult are more complicated to manage that actually the situations where it is clear that you need to do something different and that you have to do it together because there is no alternative. So I think it's really useful to see those enabling conditions of really, deep problems as the opportunity where you actually can take decisions that in better situations are, those risks are more difficult to take. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Chrysanthos, what's your opinion?
Yes, well, the reason why, one of the reasons we created Lura was the stakeholder engagement. What we found out when we start working just
Sorry,
transition
can
was,
you take your microphone
sorry, can
closer
you
because
hear me now?
yeah, now it's better.
Sorry. So, the reasons we created Lura was the stakeholder engagement, to have an effective stakeholder engagement in repurposing. The reasons were that when we started doing this work, we found out that different stakeholders had different opinions for what to do in a post-mine land. Everybody had his own opinion, do this, do that, do this here, do this, that there. And that this was not a productive way of going forward. We would get into stakeholder fights where different organizations or different stakeholders would propose uh, different things and they could not agree between them. So we said, how can we create something that gives uh, a fact-based proposal that it's difficult to dispute. So the different stakeholders can understand that this area of the mine can be used for this, and this area of the mine can be used for that. So basically, stakeholder engagement is very important, as the other speakers also uh, told us, but it needs to be done in a well-organized way in order to have good results.
Thank you, Chrysanthos. Thank you for your opinion. And I'm just checking the time. To the end, we have only 5 minutes. So I think that this webinar is like the beginning of the discussion about the barriers because I see that in every country where we tried to uh, transform the just transition, we still have some kind of challenges, problems with the stakeholders, with the authorities. But I think that that kind of the meetings, it's the one of the possibilities to exchange our experiences, our knowledge, our context as well, and just to check how others do it properly. And so that's why Vice Europe tried to collect all those good practices, and that's why we collect practices around the world. And more about this report collection of those good practices, say Aneta. And Aneta, can you say more about that? And it will be just like a little bit summary of this meeting today.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. And I think that many of the observations that we were having while preparing the report, we are still working a bit on it, are like really covering what was already said in here. We are working on this report in a team of Wise Europe and also Impact Hub. So myself, but also Krzysztof, Karol, Nela, Tamara, and we are also reaching out to many people, asking them to help us a bit, because it's also not an easy task. Because what we are aiming at, it's not only that we would present good practices, but we are actually trying to search for what is innovative in there, to identify what was the specific barrier that the solution was answering to, and what were also the enabling factors which allowed for this solution to work. And actually to identify this kind of cases which would be having this kind of logic, it's not an easy task, and that's why we are also reaching out to quite a network of people, and we are also trying to describe as many good practices or as many patterns, innovative patterns from our network. But then we are also trying to reach out beyond, but then it's a bit harder. And what we have also observed, it's much easier to describe something new, something innovative in the so-called global north, especially Germany. There is so many already good practices, innovations, etc. happening. But if we want to find something innovative happening, for example, in Central and Eastern Europe, then there is much less information, and there are several factors for sure conditioning that. On one hand, this would be that our part of Europe is even called modest innovators, and so on one hand, due to culture, due to history, we are probably less open to innovate, to test new things. And the other part is also that even if we do so, we are not thinking of it in terms of innovation, and we are also not so good in promoting that. And I think that this is one of the barriers that we are also trying to explore and to present and encourage to change, exactly through this webinar. Encouraging people to start new things, through the call for experiments, through all the activities that the Community Lab and Post-School Future Lab are organizing. This is about to help people to connect, since we are facing the common challenges, and also to try new things. And I think that another important part which is coming from today, and it's precisely something what comes from our research and also years of previous work, is that we tend to think in some kind of magical solutions, that someone will just do the magic, one thing will perfectly work, so-called silver bullets, or sometimes in different cultures or different languages it's called a bit differently, but we tend to do so. And in fact, I think that most of us is already aware that the challenges that we are facing are very complex, and one single point solution will not resolve them. And this is why we need to, on one hand, try different things and make the change in many areas, but also the key to that is to come together, to collaborate, really collaborate, not just to label something as a collaboration, but especially collaborate as people and feel that we are in the same, facing the same challenge, and also involve our collective intelligence to address what is ahead. So thank you so much for this webinar. We are looking forward for more connections. We encourage also later on to share the recording of the webinar. We think that we already received some signals that many people are interested, and probably even more can be interested later on. So thank you so much. And have a lovely, good afternoon.
Afternoon, yeah. Thank you, bye.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to jump into another meeting.
Yes, thank
Take care.
you. Bye.